Welcome to the Disruptors Podcast. Today, we're going to take on the conversation with Bill and Candace about being less white, a Coca-Cola statement that has sprung all over the social media, a controversial question. To start the show, here is a song that was written by a gentleman in Mississippi to help today start our show. And here he is.
Coca-Cola's done lost their dadgum minds. Yeah, the white guilt's hitting pretty hard this time. I thought I'd seen it all, but as it turns out, I have to change my skin to live this one down. We gotta be less white, be less white. This liberals gone wild and they lost their minds. We gotta be less white, be less white. Now I'm switching to Pepsi and it's all alright. Said to be less white is to be less oppressive, be less certain and less defensive, be less arrogant, try to actually listen. Well, Coke ain't getting served in my kitchen. Be less white, hell, be less white. This liberals gone wild and they lost their minds. We gotta be less white, be less white. Now I'm switching to Pepsi and it's all.
And now here they are, Bill and Candace. I'm Bill.
And I'm Candace.
And we're
the Disruptors.
Candace, it's great to hear from you again at your wonderful Batcave Studios on South Hill. How are you?
Well, Bill, it's great to be back. How are you doing during COVID?
Hey, I'm staying underneath the rock here where it's quiet and tame and nobody's bothering me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've been really busy. I've been very, very busy with COVID.
Oh, very
Not
busy?
with COVID, but during COVID, I should say.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Well, today we're not going to discuss COVID because everybody's discussing it. It's on the back of your milk container. It's everywhere. So we're going to skip that and jump into something that's exciting about business.
That's awesome.
Okay, so I'll let you do the introduction of today's podcast. Go ahead.
Well, I wanted us to do a podcast series on what is the functionality of a business. And with all of the different opportunities, businesses in the media, on social networking sites and so on and so forth, I think that our lines are getting so blurred as to what the responsibility or the function of a business is that I wanted to dive in and really bring some solid lines, because I think there's a lot of confusion and the lines are so blurred that we're missing the point of a business.
Oh, I agree with you. I think we're missing it too. That is for sure. And I think it's very important for people to understand what the responsibilities are for a business. I don't think anybody looks at it that way, do you?
Well, business is very simple in regards that, somebody has a need. I mean, we can take a restaurant, right? I'm hungry. Sure. That's why we have several options. We've got drive-thrus, we got fast food, we got sit down, we got, medium of the road. We've got everything from every nationality. Wonderful. I love to celebrate the diversity in food, because that's where everyone can come together and there's no firing lines, right? So that's one of the elements of a business. Businesses build bridges and not firing lines.
Very true. And it's important that firing line shouldn't be there at all because they are serving us with an answer to one of our needs.
Absolutely. And, we have a saying, love is a fair market exchange. And so if you're doing what you love to do, so, if it's barbecue, I'm going to speak to Chris's passion, then you should be out barbecuing. And that's worth money. There's a monetary value there.
Well, that's very true. Well, let's look at something that's kind of interesting to me is a whistleblower. I love that terminology, big company whistleblowers. I've always seen a guy in a beautiful suit standing out in the parking lot of a big corporation with a chrome whistle in his mouth blowing it. That's a whistleblower.
You would see it like that, Bill.
Well, Coke seems to have a real problem because they were very, very quiet recently about setting up some standards and policy changes on how they wanted their employees to react to different diversities and problems. So what they have done is they very quietly, what we're reading now in the social media and in the regular media, they've hired some top-notch people to step in and retrain the attitude of how the employee works with other, people. As simple as that, I think. And it kind of went sideways because the title of it was How to Be Less White. Now, I wonder how that must have affected some of the employees immediately. This was to be in-house. I don't think it was ever to sneak out into the public. I don't think that anyone really...
Hence the whistleblower, right?
That's correct. And
okay.
I don't think anybody ever thought of it. But, hey, the whistleblower let it go, didn't he? Now the problem is we're going through clearing of our conscience, because I know the general consensus is now that they're not facing racism in that statement. Coke isn't. They're just trying to educate their employees, and that should not have slipped out. What do you think about that? How does that make you feel if you were working for Coke and you were told to be, think less white? What would occur in your mind, Candace?
Well, first of all, it brings confusion and it brings division. And in a society, in our culture, the more that we highlight people's differences, AKA like, African American, Ethiopian, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, white people, Germans. I mean, what it does is it segregates that whole entire race or those people. And in business, we don't see that. We don't see color. We see a service. Well, actually, what we do is we see a need, and then we're the ones to fulfill that need. Again, this is building a bridge, not drawing a fire line.
Well, true.
And first of all, when Wild Child has done any diversity training, we've never alienated anyone. And this is such an ignorant statement. I don't know how you would take that, because I don't understand, what does that mean, think less white? It's a racist comment.
Well, they're teaching them to think less white, to be less assertive, to be more trusting, less defensive, less ignorant, more humble, listen, and believe what's being said, and basically try to challenge the means of racism. Wow.
Well, and see, is that... Okay, first of all, we're talking about an inside culture that has seeped out to the outside culture. So the inside culture of a company, I'm surprised that somebody didn't sue them actually over that.
Boy, I am too. I figured, they'd be racing immediately to the MR marketing department saying, hey, I can't do this. This is wrong.
Well, and I mean, there has been public outrage. Because of it, the CEO, the James Quincy, when people were calling for the boycott of Coke over the diversity training, he point blank came out and said a few right-wing nuts won't affect our bottom line. That's it just adds insult to injury, so to speak.
Well, sure it does.
So first of all, you're alien. There's so many things that are wrong with this story. Pick one. So first of all, he's assuming that everyone that is offended is a right-winged nut.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that doesn't alienate anybody, does it?
Oh no, heavens no. That's like throwing a can of gas on a bucket of, propane and lighting a match.
Well, and the CEO, I just want to point out, he's British, he's white. What does that mean? Think less white. So what is he thinking? Is he
who knows?
Thinking more male? He is a man. That's like saying, think less like a woman, think less like a man. I mean, Oh my goodness. We could stay here all day long
And just argue over that point alone. And I
we
agree with
could.
you. But here's the thing that gets me. Isn't that a fact of a fabricated comment that they've made that has, well, it really mushroomed when it hit social media. Even a guy in Mississippi, if you can imagine this, sitting on the back of a truck with a guitar, of course. He's come up with his own song about the Coke. It's called Think a Little Whiter. And it went to 1 million people in 48 hours.
Wow. That's
a lot. It was on YouTube. It's all over the place. Now, let's look at this. The CEO says that this is wrong. Now, they've sent out statements that they did not do this type of training, that it's all facts checked incorrect. It's all incorrect. USA Today had a big deal on the facts checking of that statement. Okay. Now, that's gone out. Now, we have this complete lack of understanding as far as he's concerned with the general public. Isn't this going to cut into their bottom line? Isn't that where we're going with this whole thing? People getting upset. Well, like in the song, I guess I'll just now drink Pepsi. I won't drink Coke anymore. Doesn't it get to the point where they're thinking about, okay, now this shouldn't have left our house to begin with. They fired the gal, D'Angelo, I guess was the name. I may be pronouncing the wrong person's name, who was even on YouTube and LinkedIn and several platforms for the employees to study and watch. After this broke social media, they pulled everything down. They pulled everything she had to say and shut it off immediately. Well, where do we go from there? If they supposedly didn't make these statements and didn't want the employees to do this stuff, then why did we shut down all of the stuff that was on the platforms concerning their employees listening to this? Why would we remove it if Coke wasn't concerned about the bottom line? Is this not a racist situation?
Well, it definitely can turn into one.
Right off the gate.
Definitely, they've opened up the door. And it's a shame because it's a sign of really who they've chosen to use as a CEO at the helm. Coca-Cola over the years has always been inclusive, right? I mean, I just want to go back to, some of the slogans, and I won't go like way back to the beginning. If a listener wants to do that, feel free to do that. But starting back in 2009, open happiness. I loved that campaign.
Yes, it was great. It was fun.
In 2001, life tastes good. Of course, as you're drinking your Coca-Cola. You can't beat the real thing. I mean, catch the wave, Coca-Cola, red, white, and you, America's real choice. I mean, I just keep going. All of these are inclusive and not divisive. And I think that one of the things that has really hitting home is really the cancel culture. And we should be celebrating. First of all, before we go to, we should be celebrating. What is Coke's main objective? Sell refreshing drinks, because they don't just do soda pop, right?
Right.
So we've lost that. And the CEO, they should have been better. They should have never brought out Be Less White. They should have been more specific in their diversity training class. And that is that we celebrate our employees' diversity. It's a shame that has, in a sense, I mean, I'm glad that the whistleblower blew, right?
Well, I'm sure he's now in the unemployment office looking for a job at Pepsi.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right. Who knows? Could have been a Pepsi plant.
It could have been.
It changes our perception of Coca-Cola products.
Yes, it does.
And it takes it from just being a business to now it activates people's own political agendas, their political views. It morally, socially created quite a windstorm.
When you mention windstorms, here is a gentleman who got so upset about what was going on that he wrote the song that we started our podcast with, but here's what else he had to say. I think that you're right, Candace. This is where a windstorm started.
What's going on, y'all? In honor of Coca-Cola, I have written a brand new song for you called Be Less White. That's right, the pamphlet that's going around Coca-Cola